Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Ask Abhijit. I hope you're all doing great. So, this is an episode in which I will take questions from the live chat only, no other places, only from the YouTube live chat. So, before I start doing that, let's see who all is there on the live chat. I can see Manan Chopra, I am God. Park, Jimin, Niharika Gupta, Summit Statement, Lycus, Sahana Nath, Aman Rajput, Samarth Acharya, Sai Teja, Kothapalli, Park, Jimin, Cave S, Aditi, Somalia Methi, AS, Praveen, Gudaparthi, Prathamesh, Samudradas, Harshay, Random Skull, Anurag, Brown Boy in Malaysia, Lawrence Kiefer from San Francisco, California, Pratyush, Piyush Khattar, Shreyas Nair, Om Bekerikar, hello, Deepak, Raghuvir Solanki, Prashant Sharma, Geopolitical Dubey, hello, Vladimir Chavda, Ashish Tiwari, Geo Bharat, Aryan Kolhe, Sumitre Munda, Rakshit Mishra, Red, hello, Yatika Arora, Komal, Ansh Shubhankar, Dr. Suryakant Dagar, Ubendran Ojas, Super Rex, Revolutionary Indian, Rakshasi Raj, Hey Aj, Vivekananda Panda, Utkarsh Sij, uh, Bai, Disha, and lots of other people, Sonia Sinha, Shri Ramachandra Namaha, Luffy07, Ashish Devika, uh, Lisa Rose, Dr. Jaishankar, Anushka Shekhawat, Kavya Bhatt, and lots of other people. Miguel Diaz, hello, everybody else. So I'm gonna stop greeting you all now, otherwise I'll not do anything else. And let's get going with the questions. Let us see what questions we have today. Let's see. There is Havit Chavda from London. Hello. Okay. All right. Let's take some questions. What are the questions? Vladimir Chavda says, "What's the nuisance that's going on in Parliament? Mr. Modi, Prime Minister Modi is looking a little weaker." Well, I haven't been following what's happening in Parliament. I hear the Parliament session is underway, and I do hear little birds chirping around about what's going on a day-to-day basis. I don't see what's happening on a day-to-day basis. What happened today, this time, that time, whatever. But I hear what's going on, and it looks like the opposition is emboldened because of their much better performance this time in the elections, and Mr. Modi seems to be uh, kind of not so much on the front foot the way he used to be. So it does look like he is kind of diminished a little bit, at least when it comes to speaking on the floor of the house and all that stuff. And the opposition is showing its muscle, so to say, making a lot of noise and ruckus and disrupting activities and interrupting speeches and catcalling and whatnot. That's what I hear. I've not seen any of that. That's what I've heard. So no surprise there. No surprise. The opposition has larger numbers now, so they're gonna make their presence felt. That's how it goes. And when they've done better than the last time, and they feel that the ruling party is weaker and it's a coalition government, they're gonna try and press home some kind of advantage. So that's what's happening right now. No big surprise. Um, Overall, I don't think this is a weak government as such. Or it may look a little diminished. Mr. Modi may look a little weaker, but overall, I think it may be stable, reasonably stable, for the foreseeable future. So, what really matters is not what is said on the floor of the Parliament House and what kind of debates happen. What really matters is the policies that are implemented over the next 5 years, or as long as the government stays in power. It's a coalition government. You never know. So that's what really matters. So I am not interested in what people are saying in Parliament and who's fighting and who's shouting and who's not and all that. Who's doing a walkout and what slogans are being raised. I don't care. That doesn't really matter. What really matters is the policies that are implemented going forward, and we have to see how that goes. So that's my perspective thus far. It's very early days for the current government. Okay. What other questions do we have? Praveen Gudaparthi, new member. Gudaparthi. Thank you so much. Welcome, sir. Um, okay. Vaibhav Shinde says, what's your thoughts on Tantra, sadhana, and various other practices in Sanatana Dharma which deals with the dark side of the universe? See, sir, I have absolutely no understanding of this. I am even not even a beginner in this. I have no knowledge of these things. So I'm not the right person to ask these questions. I apologize, but I don't have an answer to this. I have no idea. Never tried it. Don't know. Never studied it. Um, McLovin says, why is there a sudden increase in racism against Indians? Look, the nothing has really changed. Okay, the perceptions that existed 20 years ago still exist. Uh, the the part of the world that's been ruling the planet for the past 500 years, it obviously believes that it is superior, right? So the Europeans have been ruling the world for the past 500 or so years, past 5 centuries or so, and they believe that they are superior because they've been ruling the world for 5 centuries. And it is it is their belief that whatever physical etc attributes they have are superior. So white skin etc is superior, and darker skin is inferior, and that sort of thing. That's standard classical racism. And I believe there's some kind of racism everywhere. Uh, so that's always been there. And these days, of late, India's economy has been growing. India has been taking very strong positions geopolitically. India has followed to kowtow, bend the knee when it comes to America's demands vis-a-vis Russia, Ukraine, all that. And India is beginning to matter in certain ways. And that obviously is going to ruffle feathers. And the people who have been ruling the world for 5 centuries, they will obviously be you know they will not be happy about this. I mean, how dare you rise up? We destroyed you. How dare you still exist? Stay in your land, stay in your lane. Don't get off the reservation. So it's because India is growing and India is standing up for itself to a certain extent. That's why these people feel the need to put India in its place and to put Indians in their place. And nowadays, there are so many Indians on social media. We are 1.4 billion of us, and plus a diaspora outside of the subcontinent. And Indians are very vociferous, very opinionated. And so what we find is that Indians can often drown out the opposing narrative just by sheer volume of numbers. I mean, we've had some instances recently of certain so-called comedians going all Hindu phobic and Indo-phobic, and the Indians are very resourceful, and those people's dark past was excavated and put out in public, and that sort of thing. So you see, they don't expect Indians to be able to do this, but Indians are doing that. So that's why you will see this reaction, action reaction, Newton's third law of motion, that sort of thing. So it's a good sign, actually. It tells you that India is doing well, and they don't like the fact that India is doing well, and India is doing better than they expected. And India is projected to do even better. And India may end up, by the end of the century, perhaps being the largest economy in the world. And that's what really upsets them, whoever is indulging in racism. So that's the thing. And it's no big deal. I mean, I'm not concerned. It's always been around. And I mean, if you travel the world, you will see subtle uh, elements of racism. Sometimes subtly, depending on what circles you move in, it may be subtle, it may be covert, it may be overt, but it's always around. So yeah, there you have it. Summit statement says, what would you expect from a leader who genuinely wants to do something for Aryavarth, India, Bharatvarshi, the Indian civilization, not the nation state of India, but the civilization state of India? That's what Summit statement is talking about. Listen, there are lots of people who want good things for Aryavarth. There are lots of leaders who have good intentions, but intentions don't matter. What you fervently desire and wish for doesn't matter. What matters is the quality of the leadership. right? So what would you expect from a leader who wants to do something for Aryavarth? You would expect that they will uh, safeguard and promote the national interest as well as the civilizational interest. The national interest is, it pertains to the nation state of India, territorial integrity, uh, long term national security, long term prosperity for today's Indians and their future generations, and so on and so forth. There's a set of elements that come with that, taken together, constitute the national interest. But there is something more than that as well, which is the civilizational interest. In national interest, you also have self determination, uh, demographic continuity, cultural continuity, all of that. And some of these elements are also elements of the civilizational interest. So obviously, you would want a civilizational resurgence in India, the oldest civilization, all of that. So these are the things that a leader would want to achieve if that leader genuinely wants to do something for Aryavarth. The problem is that there are lots of leaders who genuinely wish well, but they don't even know what their civilization is. And some of them, I'm not saying this person or that person, but some of them, perhaps many of them, want to reform Indian society, because in Indian society apparently is backward. Hmm? And there are lots of evils in Indian society. So, and apparently they believe that these evils are inherent to Indian culture and so on. So, such leaders are problematic. Okay, those who want to reform Indian society and Indian culture and make it better and all that. The problem is not within India's culture. The problem is the problems have arisen because of colonialism. India has to be decolonized. India doesn't have to be uplifted and made less backward civilizationally. Yes, economically, yes, we are very backward. The GDP per capita is very low. So a leader who genuinely wants to do something needs to have a multifaceted approach. It can't be a monochromatic approach. I will only work on the economy and I will only do something about the military. The culture can go to hell. I mean, there are such leaders around. Okay, one can. I'm sure there are such leaders around. Let's put it that way. So that's a problem. See, you need leaders who have a 360-degree approach. Everything needs to be taken care of, and that's in the government you have ministries, don't you? So if you have one leader, obviously one leader can't take care of everything, but he or she can delegate work to each ministry, and their job is to do that job, right? That sort of thing. Um, so I'm sure there are lots of leaders are who mean well and who have great intentions, but at the end of the day you have to be able to perform and get things done. That is what truly defines the quality of your leadership. So if you think back about the great leaders of history, forget about India, Bharatvarsh, think about worldwide leaders. Okay, think about someone like Julius Caesar. Okay, he is considered to be one of the greats. Alexander the Greek is also allegedly one of the greats. Who else do we have? Chandragupta Maurya, his grandson Ashok Maurya, Kanishka the Great, um, and so many more. Chinggis Khan and Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and Napoleon and so on and so forth. Imagine living at a time when you have a leader like that. These leaders could genuinely take the world in their hands and force the world to bend itself to their will. That's what you genuinely need in a leader. Intentions, everybody has intentions, but it's very very difficult to make a genuine change in the world, because the entire world is geared towards inertia. Nobody wants to change, everybody wants to be comfortable. Change is painful, even good change, even change for the better is painful, because there are so many people and systems and institutions, etc., that benefit from the status quo. Think about it, every single politician who is in parliament in India today has come to power because of the system, the terrible system that we have today. Do you think they will want the system to change? The system that brought them to power. So you see, that's the difficult job that a leader has. If a leader wants to make a genuine change, they have to go against the tide, and everybody will try to oppose them. That's what you want in a leader, apart from having the best intentions. So today we don't have such leaders. I can't think of a single leader of that caliber that the names that I just uttered. I can't think of a single leader of that caliber in the world today anywhere. Okay, so that's the issue. Hopefully somebody emerges from somewhere. Maybe somebody's already around that we're not aware of this far. But yes, the task at hand is immense. Hmm. Okay, Bhagam Vishwamitra says, why do you think our defense manufacturing is so weak? China set a target of rolling out hundreds of jets per year. HAL hardly produces 20 jets a year. It's because of, see, there are multiple issues involved in this matter. First of all, the legacy issues. We never developed the capacity, whether it is HAL or wherever, to mass produce high quality stuff. First of all, the quality of our R&D, research and development. I'm sure we have great engineers, great scientists, but if your requirements keep changing every year and a half, then you simply can't develop anything. And that's what happened with the Tejas fighter plane. I mean, the program began in what 19 in the 19 late 70s, 1970s or early 80s or something like that. And the first flights took place in the first decade of the 21st century, right? And obviously, a jet fighter plane development is a long process, but it should not take that long. So what happened is that the requirements were repeatedly changed over and over again. The moment there is a little bit of progress, they'll change some requirements. Okay, this should not be this long, but that long, or whatever components. So you keep on changing that, so you have to keep on redesigning from scratch. So that's one thing, and it's, well, you know how it was, right? The politicians used to allegedly benefit from kickbacks coming in from abroad. You buy foreign defense equipment, you're gonna get some cut, and that's why you want to kill off your domestic capability if there is any. So there was that allegedly in the past. Okay, and once again, look, I am if you look at an organization like DRDO, it has, let's say, roughly 30,000 employees, out of which 25,000 are not engineers or scientists. Okay, a DRDO has a strength of roughly 30,000, of which 25,000 are not scientific or engineering staff. So I don't know what they are doing and why they exist in that organization and what they are being paid for. So a significant amount of the budget, which is allegedly science budget or R&D budget, actually goes into these salaries of these non-scientific, non-engineering people. So there are all these issues, and then an organization like DRDO HL has lots of layers of bureaucracy. And the bureaucrats generally are non-engineering, non-scientific individuals, just like the ASI, where the bureaucrats who run the ASI, they don't know anything about archaeology. They're just IAS officers, that sort of thing. So you have all these terrible legacy issues. There is a desperate need for reform everywhere, and the pace of reform is a snail's pace, and that's why we have these issues. Now, right now, we have a reasonably good fighter plane that we are producing, the Tejas, but we are putting out what, 16 or 20 per year? I mean, now that we know how to build this thing and we have an assembly line, why can't we duplicate or triplicate the assembly line and increase the production to much higher levels, so that we can even take care of export orders whenever they come in, if we have any, and so on and so forth. I don't know what the deal is. Obviously, quantity has a quality of its own. The Tejas fighter plane, what's the cost? I'm not sure what the cost is. Maybe 50 million a piece or something. I'm guessing at least 20 million a piece dollars. Uh, so why not have a couple hundred of those? I know that they are not fifth generation fighter planes, but quantity always has a quality of its own. So I would like to see a much greater turnover every year, number of production jets produced. But like I said, we have all these issues. I have just probably just scratched the surface of the problem. But these are the reasons why our defense manufacturing is weak. It's backward. And it's not just about fighter planes. We could be developing so many things. I mean, why don't we have our own howitzers, artillery, various kinds of artillery? Why don't we produce our own, destroyers, ships, submarines? Why don't we have dozens of these things? Why don't we have We have good missile systems and all, but how many are we producing? I'm not sure. So there's so much we could do. We should be completely self-sufficient when it comes to ammunition, when it comes to arms, when it comes to drones. We should have families of drones, not just one kind of drone, but dozens of kinds of drones, medium altitude, high endurance, high altitude, high endurance drones and whatnot. We should be developing all of this, and we have the talent. There is that, and obviously, when it comes to attracting talent, when you pay very small salaries, do you think you're gonna be able to attract the best of the best? No, the best of the best will go abroad and work for other countries. So these are some of the problems which are cause which are at the root of this issue. And I'm telling you, I'm just barely scratching the surface of the problem. Revolutionary Indian says, why didn't you read the Communist Manifesto? Of course I've read it. I've got it somewhere. Thin little book. uh, how do I describe that book? Look, I can explain communism in one sentence, perhaps. What communism is, or Marxism. It is a socio-political toolkit whose only objective is to bring to power a very small number of people and keep them in power at the expense of everybody else. That is what Marxism is. I'm not sure why you are assuming I haven't read the Communist Manifesto. I assure you, my dear sir, I have read the Communist Manifesto a long time ago, and I still have it for reference. So, look, I have. It's not like I am anti-communist or anti-Marxist or anti-socialist or pro-capitalist or whatever. I mean, look at the condition of capitalism, a capitalist country like the US today. If you are, let's say, an Indian immigrant in this capitalist paradise, the United States, okay, and let's say you are a highly skilled person and you're earning $100,000 per year. After taxes, how much do you have left? Maybe 70,000 or so. 70, 65,000 or something after taxes, perhaps you will have left. I'm being optimistic here. And then if you take out utilities and whatnot and your insurance and health and dental and groceries and rent and everything, you may be left with maybe $5 or $10,000 if you are really disciplined. Okay, so you are essentially living a hand to mouth existence if you are a single individual, single male or female, living on his or her own. The moment you have a spouse and that spouse is dependent on you, you are in deep waters. And God forbid you have a child. Good God, what are you gonna do? Both of you gonna have to work, and then you have to outsource the upkeep, the raising of your child to complete strangers. And then you know what happens. Kids develop green hair and blue hair, and they chop off bits and pieces of their anatomy. That's what happens. Uh, so the US is no capitalist paradise today. And people who aren't highly skilled have to work like 2, 3 jobs a day and sleep 4 hours a day just to put 2 or 3 meals on the table for their kids. It's a disaster today. So whether it's communism, whether it's capitalism, no matter what system it is, it can be subverted, it can be corrupted. Communism has this track record of producing disasters over and over again. Shall I give you the examples? Look at what happened in the USSR, a collectivized society. Okay, the dictatorship of the proletariat. It was the you know the objective of communism is to bring a very small number of people to power and maintain them in power. That is the Politburo. Okay, that small group of individuals, and their minions are the bureaucracy. Okay, and the USSR was a collectivized society, so nobody had any savings, nobody had any private property, everything belonged to the state. So all the savings of the people of the USSR for 7 decades were the property of the Chinese of the Communist Party of the USSR. And after the collapse of communism, what happened? All of that property was given away to so-called oligarchs. All of the savings of the people of the USSR, 7+ decades of savings, were just handed off to a small number of people. That's what happened when there was a transition from communism to capitalism, apparently. And communism itself failed in the USSR. Communism It has failed everywhere else, whether it is Cambodia. I mean, look at what happened in Cambodia. Look at what happened in Angola. Look at the condition of Cuba. Obviously, I will not blame communism for what happened to Cuba. It is the US sanctions that have destroyed Cuba and so on. But overall, it doesn't ever produce great results. And then they said, no, it was not the right kind of communism. The next time we do it, we'll do it the right way. And capitalism also can be subverted the same way. Look at what's happening in the US. I mean, it's a disaster right now. So it doesn't matter what system it is. Any system can be subverted, corrupted. Yeah, whether it is communism, whether it is capitalism, whether it is dictatorship, whether it's democracy. If you do it right, it may all work. All of these systems may work. If you do it wrong, any of these systems could give you a terrible result. So that's what I shall say about this in brief. Stephen Dominic says, can we ever go to another galaxy or universe? Okay, let's not talk about other universes. We have never seen another universe. We can only see a small portion of the universe we inhabit. How far can we see? We can see uh, as far as about 47 billion light years away. Okay, in any direction. So the diameter of the observable universe is about 94 or so billion light years. So that's all we can see. It's only a small portion of the actual universe we inhabit, and we don't know what's beyond. Okay, if there is anything beyond or not. We can conjecture, we can speculate, but we don't know. So other universes, let's not discuss it, because there is no observational evidence, which means it is not science we're discussing. We are only discussing fantasy if you're talking about other universes. What about other galaxies? Look, theoretically, there is nothing that prevents us from going to another galaxy. Let's say you develop a spacecraft that travels at, let's say, 30% the speed of light. It's possible. It's possible with let's say technology that's almost here. You can use light sail technology to accelerate a spacecraft, a small spacecraft, to very quickly to speed of about 30% the speed of light, using gigawatt lasers that you shine on the light sail. Can be done. We are almost there. We may have the technology in about 10 years. And then you will be that spacecraft will be traveling at 30% or maybe even 40% the speed of light. And it can reach the nearest star system in about 20 or 30 years. Proxima Centauri, which is your neighbor, your backdoor neighbor. That's it. The next star, the nearest star. Which is about 4 point something light years away. 4 point something light years from here, from where we are. The galaxy, our home galaxy, the Milky Way, is what, 100,000 light years? I think in diameter, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me right. And the nearest galaxy, Andromeda, is of the order of a few million light years from here. So it would take, at 30% the speed of light, about 3 to 4 million years to reach there. That's it. That's all. So how old is the human species, Homo sapiens? About 400,000 years, 0.4 million years. Okay. And if you talk about if you go back 4 million years in the past, we were at a stage in our evolution where our ancestors were the same as the ancestors of the chimpanzees. So by the time your spacecraft reaches Andromeda 4 million years in the future, we may have evolved that much that our descendants will think of their ancestors who sent the spacecraft as the way we think of chimpanzees. So it's possible, technically, theoretically, with current present day technology, but it is impractical. So you can send a small spacecraft. You can even magnify your lasers and have a large number of lasers and concentrate that on a larger solar sail and send human beings into space at that speed. But will they survive for 4 million years or so? Will they be able to replicate, reproduce and survive and all that in that small thing, capsule, etc.? Lots of questions. It's possible. So the answer in short is, it is possible, but it is extremely impractical with present day technology. But let's say we have superhuman species in the future, super intelligent humans, or let's say you have artificial super intelligence, which may be around the corner. Then you could be able to do things that we can't imagine today. like punch a hole through space time, create an Einstein Rosen bridge, a wormhole, and then do weird stuff with the wormhole, which leads to extremely paradoxical situations, such as relativistic, well, essentially time travel. Could be possible. So you could do stuff that you can't imagine today if you have ASI, artificial super intelligence. And that may open up a whole range of possibilities that we can't even possibly imagine today. So that's what I'll say. With present day technology and understanding, we can do it, but we can do it extremely slowly, and it's not practical. Okay. Um, Inia says, why is the government not taking any action against influencers that are spreading fake news and are brainwashing people? And these individuals apparently seem to be funded by the West. Well, you see, India is a wonderfully democratic nation. In India, we have something called freedom of speech and freedom of expression, which means that you have the right to say whatever you want. Okay? Um, Imagine you go to China, and imagine in China somebody says something about President Xi Jinping. What's going to happen? Let's say someone goes on their Twitter, what's it called, Weibo or whatever it's called, and they say that Xi Jinping is a dictator. Down with Xi Jinping. What's going to happen? 15 minutes later, the cops are going to turn up at his or her home, and that guy or girl or whoever it is going to be behind bars for a significant percentage of his or her lifetime. That's what will happen, guaranteed to happen in China. That's a nation without free speech. That's not a democracy. But in our wonderful, more evolved nation, Bharatvarsh, India, a secular socialist nation, we have freedom of speech, which means you can say whatever you want. You can say anything you wish about the prime minister, and nothing's going to happen to you. Okay, and that is the exact opposite of a dictatorship. But it has gone to such a level that you can even say outright lies about the prime minister, about the government, about the national security situation, about the state of affairs in India. You can say outright lies. And when certain individuals who have very large amount of, who have a very large following, uh, and these are individuals apparently may have some kind of agenda, they may have some kind of funding from which comes in from outside or wherever, then they'll be able to do this at scale, large scale. And if the government cracks down on these individuals, then the entire Western media is going to start howling in chorus, saying that India is becoming a fascist nation, India's democracy is backsliding. Here is evidence that so and so person innocently said something very, very truthful and genuine, and see, the government cannot handle any criticism, it will not allow any criticism. So because we don't want to face that criticism from the Western media and governments, we are doing nothing about this. And I'm not trying to say that the government of India is being weak kneed and is giving in. Okay, there are real problems. The West is waiting for even the smallest opportunity to take some kind of action against India. The West considers India to be a problem. The West considers India to be a long-term threat and adversary and competitor. If India just keeps on growing the way it's growing, even if it keeps on growing at 6% per year, in 20, 30 years, India is going to be ahead of China. And India is going to be a significant problem for them. So they would like to nip that in the bud right now. And how do you do that? You do that by undermining India's economy, by undermining India's economic growth. And you can do that through what? Soft sanctions, hard sanctions, whatever. But for that, you need an excuse, you need a pretext. So let's say the Indian government does take some actual action against the terrorists in Manipur. Imagine the kind of sanctions they'll dump on India. Imagine India puts a couple of fake news spreading influencers, takes some legal action against fake news spreading influencers. Then there could be action against India of some kind, and so on. The West is just waiting for the slightest opportunity to pounce on India. And I believe me, they have the ability to completely destroy the economy of almost any nation. They can take a prosperous nation and reduce it to Venezuela or Cuba like situation. They did that to Cuba, they did that to Venezuela. Venezuela's hyperinflation and all that is not because of socialism, it's because of US sanctions. Okay, if Iran's economy is not doing well at all, it's not because Iran, it's not because of the whatever regime you have in Iran, it's because of American sanctions. They can destroy a nation entirely, which sitting here living our comfortable lives we don't realize. They can reduce a nation to hell in a matter of a couple of months. So the Indian government has to be extremely careful. We have to swallow this sort of pain until we grow to a 10, $15 trillion economy level, and develop some genuine hard power along the way. That military might, military muscle, which comes in a variety of shapes and forms. So that's what needs to happen. And right now, we are simply not strong enough to stand up to the West. We have to understand this. We are not a superpower, my dear friends. We are not even close to dream about being a superpower. We are nowhere. We are just a regional power. Okay, and we may be a potential great power in the future, maybe in 10 years' time. Right now, we are merely a regional power. We are nowhere close to Vishwaguru or superpower, whatever. I don't know why Indians want to, they keep on throwing these wild, fantastical things about India as a superpower or a rising superpower. No, you're not. You're nowhere close to being a superpower. So we have to be realistic that we are nowhere close to being able to stand up to the US. And that's why we have to act meek. It is in our interest to keep our head down and just do the work of growing the economy. For the next 20, 30 years, it's going to take time. There's no shortcuts, my friends. So, that in short is the deal. All right. Um, Sunny says, what can we do about China? China exists. First of all, recognize that China exists. And secondly, recognize that it is about 4 times more powerful than India. These are facts. If you take the hard power score of India, it is about 4.9. If you look at the hard power score of China, it's about 17 or something. It's almost 4 times that of India. That is how much more powerful China is compared to India. We have to recognize this fact. Okay. And understand that whenever wars are, if you look at the past 5,000 years of history, wars are won by technology. Wars are not won through someone's bravery. Everybody is brave. If a man has the brave has the courage to go into battle, knowing that he will die or he could die, that is bravery enough. Everybody is brave. What really matters is your technological prowess, technological advancements, technological ability. That is historically that has been the determinant of victory or defeat in war or in battles. So what we have to do about China is we have to develop our military and other technological prowess. That's what we have to do. Saying that our soldiers are brave and blah blah blah, of course they are brave, but that is not gonna guarantee any victory. We have to develop the technological prowess and we have to surpass the Chinese. And we are not there. We are not anywhere close to surpassing the Chinese. So what can we do? We can thank the gods that we have a Himalayan border region between India and Chinese occupied Tibet, where technology has to kind of take a back foot, and the quality of the human capital comes to the fore if it comes to battlefield tactics and battlefield outcomes. But and yet China is way ahead of India. So what we have to do is, first of all, we have to close the gap between in hard power by growing the economy and and growing the military and increasing the military budget. Okay. And secondly, we have to develop the technologies that will allow us to properly compete against China. That's what we have to do. And we have to do this rapidly, not over, okay, next 20 years we'll do something. No, no, no. This is urgent. This is critical. Trust me, this is critical. You never know with China when they could start a new misadventure. So that's what we have to do about China. Stop living in La La land, in Vishwaguru land, superpower land. Be realistic. Understand you're the smaller guy right now and try and become bigger. Do that. Do the hard work and do it on an urgent basis, on priority. That's what we have to do. Okay. What else? What else? Let's talk about cricket. Cinephile says, is Jasprit Bumrah the greatest bowler ever? The accuracy and ball control he has is impeccable. The skills which he has are close to none. Look, I think it's too early to say that he is the greatest bowler ever. Or what I would say that, look, I have been watching cricket since for a very long time. I remember as a kid watching the 1992 World Cup. Okay, the only good thing that happened for us was we defeated Pakistan. Um, so I've seen them all. I've seen Imran Khan bowling live. I've seen Wasim Wakar bowling. I have seen Curtly Ambrose. I've seen Malcolm Marshall. I have seen Walsh. I've seen Glenn McGrath. I've seen them all. I've seen Kapil Dev, Prabhakar, Srinath. So I would say it's early days to start claiming that Jasprit Bumrah is the best ever. Let him play his entire career. Let his career come to an end. Then we can make an assessment. I would say he's probably the best India has ever produced. That I can already see that. But is he the best ever of all time? I would say he may be better than Wasim and Wakar because those two gentlemen were the champions of ball tampering. And they learned it from the great man himself, Imran Khan Niazi. So I would be, they were great, of course, Wasim and Wakar. I think Wasim was even better than Wakar. But ball tampering, that shadow always will lie over their heads, okay, the Pakistanis. Ball tampering, match fixing, that specter will always haunt them for good reason. I would say, so that's why I would say that Bumrah, I would rank him higher than Wasim and Wakar. But let's see how he goes, how he performs through the rest of his career. But is he better than someone like Ambrose? I think Ambrose perhaps is the best ever, in my opinion, out of those who I've seen. Okay, Ambrose perhaps. But over time, let's see. Will Jasprit Bumrah get 400 plus test wickets and similar achievements in ODIs and all that? We don't know. I hope he does. It'll be great for us. It'll be great for him. I like the guy very much. Great guy. So let's see. I think it's too early to pass judgment, but he definitely, I would say, is a is probably the best bowler India has produced. Better than Srinath, better than Prabhakar, better than Zahir Khan, better than Kapil Dev. Oh yes, I would say he's better than Kapil Dev. But worldwide, globally, we still have to see. Okay. Um, um, okay, what else? Lots of questions, of course. Aditi says, can the US fall as an empire? What will be the consequences of it falling? Look, any empire can fall, any empire can collapse. And it's something, if you study history, you will see that every empire eventually does decline and fall. And obviously, when it's declining, it will try its best to prevent the decline and to avert the fall, which means it's going to lash out in all directions. So every empire eventually does fall. You said see that over and over again in India itself, in the Indian subcontinent. We had huge empires that came that eventually fell. Generally, on average, an empire in India lasts about 2 or 3 centuries, 2.5 or 3 centuries as an empire. Then after declining, it may become a kingdom again for another century or so, but it's no longer an empire. So an empire typically lasts 2 or 3 centuries. And you see the same kind of thing in China as well, 2 or 3 centuries. Um, of course, the Cholas as a dynasty ruled for almost 2000 years in some form or the other. But as an empire, they ruled for about 2 or 3 centuries in the form of an empire. Uh, and so on and so forth. The Roman Empire, how long did that last? 2, 3 centuries maybe. The Eastern Roman Empire lingered for a much longer time, which is the Byzantine Empire. And you have similar things in other parts of the world. So empires will eventually fall. Now, how long has the US empire existed? The empire essentially came into being in, let's say, the year of birth is 1944, when you had the official coronation, when they took the crown from the British and put it on their heads. The Westphalia thing, right? Yeah, the Treaty of Westphalia, when the US dollar was agreed upon, was accepted as the global currency, and blah blah blah. And 58 was the final humiliation of the British and the French as well, and they ceased to be first class global geopolitical power. So the US has been the global empire, let's say, or the successor of the British Empire since 44, which is about 80 years ago. Is it 80 roughly? This is 2024. It's about 80 years ago. But as an empire, not global empire, but as a regional empire, they have been around for much longer. I mean, they went to war with everybody in North America, defeated everyone. So let's say another 100 years have elapsed since the Americans have been an empire. If you look at North America, I mean, where's the map? Here's the map. Let's go to the map. North America. So the US, do we have some kind of image of the progression, territorial expansion of the US? It used to be much smaller. They fought other countries. They fought the Mexicans. They fought the French. They fought everybody. They plundered land from the natives, and they expanded rapidly. So that was an expansion that took at least 100 years. So you can say that the US empire has been in place, in power, for about roughly 180 or 200 years. So we are kind of there, perhaps, when an empire starts declining, generally. So the US can certainly fall as an empire. And in the modern day context, what the word superpower essentially means empire. Uh, so how could they fall is the question. Well, one thing is that their currency may no longer be recognized as the global reserve currency. Other nations may start trading in other currencies and no longer prioritize the US dollar. That could be one factor that could uh, cause the fall, or the rapid decline of the US empire. The US has global power projection capabilities. It has more than 800 extraterritorial military bases around the world. So if that is impacted, that could obviously significantly dent their global power projection ability and their global superpower status. So all these things could contribute to the fall of the US as an empire. All the supply chains it has built up, all the uh, networks, uh, trade networks, agreements, treaties, all of that together forms the superstructure, the infrastructure of empire. And if that is affected in some way or the other, the empire may decline. So right now, if you look at the US, its influence, its prestige is diminishing, but its power hasn't diminished. The US dollar is still the global reserve currency, very much so. And the power projection capabilities of the US are unmatched, and they are not declining. So overall, it's not anywhere close to falling, but it can fall. What are the consequences? Chaos. Whenever empires fall, there's chaos. There's a significant period of time of turmoil. I mean, if you look at the Chinese imperial cycles, whenever an empire, or whenever a dynastic cycles, right? Whenever a dynasty loses the mandate of heaven, let's say, like the Chinese say, then the dynasty falls, the empire falls, and then there's a period of chaos, 50 years, 100 years, maybe 150 years, until a new dynasty arises, a new empire arises, and there's a new imperial cycle or dynastic cycle. So that is typically what happens everywhere. So if the US falls as an empire, there's going to be a period of chaos, a sustained period of chaos, maybe half a century, maybe a century or so, until a new power emerges. So it won't be good for the world. Okay, they may be, uh, they may be hegemonic power. They may ride roughshod over everybody. They may, prop up dictatorships around the world. They may interfere in everybody's internal affairs. They may bully nations and much more. And they may destroy nations, flatten nations like they did to Iraq, Libya, etc. But if they decline and fall, it's going to be even more chaos worldwide. That is the way it is. Unless there's there's right away someone to replace it, which is kind of perhaps unlikely. Okay. Um, Prachit Agarwal says, how do we raise our standards? The mind keeps dragging back to the low ordinary behaviors. There has to be, I think it's a great question. Maybe I should do a separate video about this after giving some thought to it. But let me give you some straight away a few pointers. You have to change the way you think. Uh, we generally everybody tends to think emotionally. uh, Everybody tends to, the thought process tends to be a knee jerk reaction to what's happening. We don't use scientific reasoning, logical reasoning. We don't use mental models to approach problems and situations. What is the scientific process, the scientific method? We don't know what that is. It's not about creating a body of knowledge or whatever. The scientific method is about asking extremely uncomfortable questions when it comes to any situation or problem, so that you get the correct information out of it, and then you can identify the problem and maybe find ways to solve it. So there is that. And obviously raising your standards means discipline. Discipline is extremely difficult. Discipline comes through very small things. Discipline comes through extremely small decisions you take over and over again. The choices that you make on a daily basis, the choices you choose to make, the systems you create, the processes you create in your life, the routines you follow, all of that. And all of that, also what you consume, the food you consume. Are you consuming the right kind of food? Are you consuming the right quantity of the right kind of food? And not just the food you consume, the reading material that you consume. What do you read every day? Do you scroll 3 hours a day on whatever screen you have on your mobile device? That is also consumption. What kind of entertainment choices do you have? Do you watch some whatever series on TV that doesn't provide any value to you? You spend 3 4 hours a day watching whatever OTT platform and some random series all day, is consuming information or entertainment mindlessly. Or are you actually creating something? Are you actually trying to solve some problem and create something of value for yourself, your family, society, country, whatever? All of these things you have to ask yourself, right? You have to ask yourself, if you ask yourself, what three things should I do that will make me proud 1 year down the line? What three things should I stop doing which will make the biggest difference in my life in 1 year's time? And so on and so forth. These are the things you have to do. So maybe I should make a separate video about this. But I think I hope what I just said will give you some kind of pointers in that direction. It's a constant process. It's never, you have to jump out of your comfort zone and get really uncomfortable, because all the growth, all the progress comes from that. And I think everybody has a tremendous amount of potential, but most of us, you know we want comfort, don't we? We want nice routine, nice comfort, everything the way it is, status quo. Why change things? I'm comfortable enough. So that is the enemy of changing, of raising your standards. So you have to do these things to raise your standards. Maybe I not maybe I definitely will make a video about this, how to raise your standards. But yeah, great question. Alan J. Victor says, we all know that Hitler committed suicide, but why did he not escape to South America like some other notorious Nazi generals and scientists? Well, it's a good question. Why did he commit suicide? So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what evidence do we have that he committed suicide? Do we have evidence of him having committed suicide? I mean, you go to Wikipedia, they'll say, or wherever, it'll say he committed suicide. What evidence do we have? Do we have his body? Do we have pictures of him? I mean, there are some very low resolution black and white pictures of what is alleged to be his dead body and stuff, but there is no actual hard evidence of Hitler having committed suicide. So there are theories. Okay, I am not espousing this theory or that, but there are theories. that claim that he indeed did escape to South America and lived out his life wherever, in whatever nation. Just like Mengele and Adolf Eichmann and whoever else. Eichmann was obviously captured by the Israelis, brought to Israel, and he was put to trial and eventually hanged. Adolf Eichmann. Klaus Barbie was caught eventually when I was a kid in France, and Rudolf Hess was in jail in the UK, I think, until he committed suicide, so and so forth. But there is no evidence, hard evidence, incontrovertible evidence that Hitler committed suicide. It is said that the Soviets found his body and they burned it, or it was half burned or whatever, and they took it away or whatever. That's what is claimed. Where's the hard evidence? It doesn't exist. I mean, a piece of bone, a piece of tissue, whatever that can be verified that it belonged to him, the DNA evidence or whatever. So it's not there. So there are theories that he actually may have escaped. Are they true? Are they untrue? I don't know. But what I can tell you is that I have not seen incontrovertible evidence of Hitler having committed suicide. But maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. Who knows? So this is the thing about history. There are lots of gray areas that we don't quite know about. Okay, Abhishek Samant says, can you explain Pax-Romana and Pax-Americana? The word Pax means peace, P-E-A-C-E, peace in Latin. Latin was the language of Imperial Rome. The modern day Italian language is a descendant language, daughter language of Latin. So Pax Romana means Roman peace. It means peace on the terms of the Roman Empire. And I don't remember who it was who said that the Romans create a wasteland and then they call it peace, which means they will come into a country, they will devastate the country, destroy everything, create a wasteland, and then they will say, see, we have imposed peace on the nation. We have pacified the nation. This is Roman peace, Pax Romana. So that's what it meant. It meant that the Romans ruled over a certain period of a certain area of the world, and there was peace in that area of the world, but peace on Roman terms. So when they conquer Greece, they pacify the nation, kill off the kings and everything, and then they impose peace on the nation. Peace through the Roman swords, the gladius. So that was Pax Romana. Peace imposed forcibly on a nation by defeating the nation and militarily occupying the nation. That was Pax Romana. Okay, so it is not something that was good for the subjugated peoples, for the subjugated nations. But yes, today people yearn for that sort of thing, for the greatness and glory of Rome. Every day people think about the Roman Empire apparently in the West. Yeah. And they think of it as a time of great progress and whatnot. Okay, yeah, sure. There was progress, but a lot was destroyed in the process. A lot was destroyed in the process. If you look at Europe today, there's only one script in Western Europe, which is the Latin script. Well, before the Romans stamped their authority everywhere, there were many more scripts. The runic scripts, Ogham was there. Various kinds of runic scripts existed and much more. All those scripts were wiped out, and the Latin script was imposed everywhere. And the Latin script is not native to Germanic languages like the English language. The English language uses a non-native script, by the way, and so on. So that is Pax Romana. It was colonization. It was imperialism, and the same thing applies to Pax Americana. The Americans they essentially ruled the world today, whether you realize it or not. They're the most influential nation in the world today. They are the genuine Vishwaguru today. The Americans are the Vishwaguru today. And not just the Vishwaguru, but the Vishwa soldier, the Vishwa ruler, the Vishwa superpower. That's what they are. And the so-called rules-based international order that exists today is Pax Americana. Okay, Harshit Agrawal says, what was the reason behind the demise of Chengiz Khan? And who was his son? So Chengiz Khan died around 1227 AD. He died in China, in present-day China. He was in the process of subjugating the Western Shia Empire, the Shishia Empire. And the process was not yet completed, and he died. in the year 1227. And why did he die? What was the cause of his death is not known, because the only text that we know of that is the authoritative text for the life and times of Shri Chinggis Khan, the secret history of the Mongols. This text does not speak about why he died or how he died. So that is a matter of mystery. It is unknown what he died of. And then there are various speculations, but none has been proven. One speculation is that he got injured in a battle with the Shishya, and he may have died of his injuries. Another piece of speculation is that he had married a princess of the Shishya, and because he was once again invading the Shishya Empire and he would have destroyed her people, maybe she stabbed him to death, or caused his death in some way, or poisoned him or something. So there are all these speculations. No proof of any of these. All we know is that he died in the year 1227. And apparently his last, before dying, his last order, apparently, as it is claimed, was that Shishya is to be destroyed, annihilated. And that was done after his death. So we don't know the reason for his demise, but he died in the year 1227 or 1228, something like that. Check it out. I don't have all the memories stored away in my brain, small brain, you see. Okay, now who was his son? Well, he did not have a single son. He had multiple sons. The first was Jochi, whose paternity is kind of in doubt, but he always regarded Jochi and always recognized him as his son. Long story, read it up if you want. Jochi was the first son. The second son was, who was the second son? Was it Chagatai? The third son was Ogedai. And I can think of at least three sons. He would have had daughters as well. But I can remember three sons: Jochi, Chagatai, Ogedai. And long before he died, a significant amount of time before he died, he had decreed, he had made the statement, he had proclaimed that it was Ogedai, his third son, who would succeed him as the great Khan of the Mongols. And that was his word, and his word was carried out. His wish was carried out. Ogedai became his successor, the second emperor of the Mongol Empire. So he had at least three sons that I can think of. So Ogedai was the second Khan of Gur Khan, or Khagan of the Mongol Empire, and I think it was one of Chinggis Khan's grandsons, Kublai Khan, who went on to become the emperor of China, the first emperor of the Yuan dynasty, and then retrospectively Chinggis Khan was proclaimed as the first emperor of the Yuan dynasty, and so on. So multiple sons, and we don't quite know how he died. Okay, Parag Chauhan says, can you throw some light on King Vahram, the king of the Persians, who requested... Okay, yeah. King Vahram, which the Persians requested to come and save them from the Arabs. Okay, yes, the Ballad of King Vahram is an ancient Sasanian poem. Let me find that. There is a guy called Faraji on YouTube. So let me go to his YouTube channel. And I will not play the music because I would get a copyright strike here. It is his music. But I can show you the channel and you could check it out. So this is the channel. I think this gentleman is Persian, if I'm not mistaken. Now let's look for Vahram. Okay, yeah, the Ballad of King Vahram. And I will not play this for obvious reasons. And what's the story behind this? The story is that the Persia has been invaded by the Arabs. Okay, so Persia has been invaded by the Arabs, and the Arabs have killed the Persian kings, and they are destroying the Persian temples, Zoroastrian temples, and destroying the Persian religion, and so on. And somebody writes this poem saying that we need to send a messenger to India so that we can inform the Indians of what the Arabs have done to us. They've killed our kings and they're destroying our religion. And we hope that from India, King Vahram will come with on elephants with very powerful commanders, and he will uh, evict the Arabs from Persia. So that's the kind of sad lament this poem represents. Uh, they wish that they could send a messenger to India to inform the Indians of what has happened, so that the Indians can come and save the Persians. That's what the thing is. So what does that tell you about the relations between India and Persia? When you are see the Arabic invasion of Persia was the worst moment in the history of Persia. It was a time of extreme desperation. The kings, the royalty, everything was destroyed. Their culture, civilization, religion was on the verge of being wiped out. When you are at the lowest point, who will you remember? You will only remember those closest to you, right? You won't remember your fair weather friends. You will only remember those who are closest to you and the ones who are the most closely related to you. So that kind of tells you that India and Persia had this extremely close relation. India and Persia never went to war before the Arabic invasion. Some border skirmishes and things they happen even between Indian kings. So that's no big deal. Even brothers fight, right? When it comes to kings and all that, brothers, cousins, they fight. What is the Mahabharata? It's cousins fighting. So that sort of small thing would obviously have happened along the border regions of India and Persia, but the Persians, who were a tremendously militaristically expansive people, they never ever tried to launch a full scale or even a half hearted military invasion of India. Never happened until Persia became Arabized. So, yeah, it kind of indicates how close the kinship and cultural and civilizational bonds were between India and Persia. Today, you don't see that. Today, the Persians don't see India as kin, because Persia no longer is kin. Uh, During the Turkic occupation of Persia, last 300-400 years, lots of outsiders were brought into Persia by the Turkic kings of the Khwarazm Empire and later empires. If you look at Persia, the Caucasus region, lots of people were brought into Persia from the Caucasus region, Azerbaijani people and various people from the Caucasus, and that has significantly changed the demographics of Iran. If you go to Iran today, you will see a certain percentage of the people who look almost European. Light eyes, maybe blue eyes or green eyes, and light hair. Some of them have blonde hair, some have red hair, and light skin. So lots of people in Persia, a certain percentage look like that. If you look at Mr. Khomeini, etc., they kind of look very uh, almost European or Turkic at least. But the true Persians, they have light brown skin, dark eyes, and dark hair. So that has kind of changed. The demographics have changed, and the thought process, attitudes, all that has changed in Persia now. So today, that closeness isn't there anymore between India and Persia, which historically was a fact. So this poem, the Ballad of King Vahram, is kind of the last gasp of that. When Persia was being destroyed by the Arabs, and their one last wish was that maybe they were hoping that India could be made aware of what was happening and India will come and save them. Didn't happen, because at that time India itself was not politically unified under a single empire. If India was unified under a single empire at the time, who knows, our emperor, whoever it was, may actually have gone and rescued the Persians. But at the time it was not the case. uh, the Arabic invasion of Persia happened at a time when there was no single empire in India. It was multiple. There's this cyclical process, right? So that's where India was at the time. Okay. What else do we have? Lots of questions. Vivek Kumar says, any day the Sentinelese tribe of Andaman and Nicobar connects to the real world. Is the Indian government doing something in this area? Okay, let us talk about the Sentinel Island. So it's an island in the Andaman and Nicobar archipelago. Let's go and take a look at it. So I'll go to the satellite imagery, and we're gonna go and find the Sentinel Islands. Sentinel Island. So I'm sure you all know where the Andaman Nicobar archipelago is. Let's go, let's dig in. And do you see this little island here, the North Sentinel Island? That's the island we're talking about. And you can see it's all forest. It's not a very large island. If you look at the legend at the bottom of the map, you can see that the island is roughly 10 kilometers or so. Okay, 7.8 kilometers wide. And if you measure from here to here, it's about 9 kilometers this way. So it's a reasonably small island, about 50 square kilometers or so, roughly, okay. And you will see nothing here, no signs of human habitation or anything. You won't see any huts, any dwellings, but there are people who live here. That is known. And I'm not going to try and dig in and try and zoom in and find some signs of habitation. I think if you do that, you will find tracks, you know, tracks left by people. You can see this what looks like a track over here, a walking trail or something, and you will see these things over here if you spend some time looking at the island. So you have people living here, but these people have been living here in isolation for about 30 or 40,000 years. The British did kind of occupy the island for a while, and the British left very bad memories in the minds of these people, which is why they are extremely hostile today, and they don't want any kind of outsiders coming in. And if any outsider comes in and tries to approach the island, then they shoot arrows at them. That is what is known about their behavior. So I think a few decades ago, the government of India decided that this island will not be nobody will be allowed to go to the island. We will respect the wishes of the people of this island. We will not allow anyone to go there. Let them live their lives under our protection, but entirely autonomously. So you can say that North Sentinel Island, the people of this island itself is a self-governing island. It is kind of a protectorate of India. It is definitely part of the Indian territory, but it has local governance. I don't know what form of governance it is, but we don't interfere with their life. When the earthquake and tsunami happened in 2004, we did send some helicopters to take a look at what's happening and to make sure that everybody is alive. I think they were all alive and they were shooting arrows at the helicopter, which shows that they were okay. So that is the deal. So they don't want to connect with the rest of the world. They are living a life that can be classified as a Stone Age kind of existence. That is their lifestyle. They are probably the last Stone Age tribe on the surface of the planet. There may be some uncontacted tribes in the Amazon rainforest, but when it comes to our part of the world, it's the only known Stone Age tribe. So yeah, that is the situation. And recently, some wonderfully intelligent American missionary had tried to go there with a Bible in his hand, and well, didn't end very well for him, is all I'll say. Okay. Um, okay, let's say what other questions do we have? Giuseppe Di Fraia says, why in the world of intersexual dynamics, men and women fight to destroy the gender? Red pill men want to take away women's human rights, and feminism wants to oppress men. Strange times. Look, this is straight out of the Marxist playbook. You create artificial divisions of society. You paint one section of society as the oppressed. You paint another section of the society as oppressors, and then you make them fight, and then a small group of people gets the benefit of all of this. So right now, since the 1950s, 60s, feminism has been hijacked by the left, and they have created this artificial fight. They paint the men as the oppressors and the women as the oppressed. The evil, toxic patriarchy, right? The patriarchy. So fight the patriarchy is the slogan. So now it's about women fighting men, and men are oppressors. So if a woman has a boy child, then she's going to regard that boy as an oppressor. I mean, what kind of incredible nonsense is that? But that's the level of the fight in society that you have in the West today, and that's now coming into India as well. Feminism and gender studies and whatever, right? So this is being taught to Indians as well these days in university, colleges, and whatnot. And I don't know what this balance is. Red pill, blue pill. I think it comes from the movie The Matrix, right? Red pill and blue pill. Morpheus offers those two pills to Neo. I think red pill means you wake up to the reality of the world, and blue pill means you will stay asleep or whatever, oblivious to what's really happening. That sort of thing. Yeah, it's strange times. Strange times we're living through, and yeah, it's not good. It never ends well when you're fighting each other. Okay. Mm, Geopolitical Dubey says, do you believe in the stories of Annabelle? I haven't seen the movie. I think it's a horror movie of some kind, right? Is it a doll, a haunted doll? Is it a haunted nun? Not sure. Look, it's all supernatural stuff, right? I am not a believer in the supernatural. Um, I'm more of a logical person, no rationalist as such. When I hear the word rationalist, it sounds like imbecile to me. Yeah, but anyway, so I don't know about the stories of Annabelle and all these gods and demons. Not gods and demons. It is what Satan, right? Satan and his demons. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in Satan. I don't believe in hell. I don't believe in the demons of Satan and whatever else. Nah, not for me. Um, Weiss says, your opinion on Ozempic, and is obesity mostly genetic? I think this Ozempic is some kind of drug, isn't it? A weight loss drug, fat burning drug of some kind. I've heard of it vaguely. I'm not sure how it works. What's the mechanism of action? Uh, if it is famous, it probably means that it works to a certain extent. Well, good then if it works, but I'm not sure how good it is, how efficacious it is, and how safe it is. So I don't really know about that, about the mechanism of the drug, how it works, and all that. Is obesity mostly genetic? I think some people have a predisposition for various kinds of addictions. Some people find it easy to get addicted to alcohol or tobacco or gambling or carbohydrates. So carbohydrates is what causes obesity when you uh, ingest excessive amounts of carbohydrates. Of course, if you eat a lot of protein and fat, also it'll make you fat. But when it comes to the very harmful kind of obesity, it is generally carbohydrates that do that, because it doesn't just make you fat; it messes up your entire system through within. It causes damage in your liver, in your pancreas, in your kidneys. It elevates your insulin thing. It creates insulin resistance, which has extremely bad, harmful effects on the cardiovascular system itself as well. It can cause strokes, it can cause hypertension, it can cause heart attacks. That's all carbohydrates. So it is possible that some people may have this genetic predisposition to becoming addicted to carb heavy foods, sugary stuff, and refined flours and refined material, refined hyper ultra refined, ultra processed foods and all that. And these days you have all these cheap seed oils and all, which add fuel to the fire on top of what you already have, and so on. So um, at the end of the day, obesity is all about calories in, calories out. Obviously, not every calorie is the same. If you eat 100 calories of just from sugar, if you eat 100 calories from vegetables and fruits, and if you eat 100 calories from meat, these are all different. The calories you will get from sugar, 100 calories, are going to be just pure 100 calories. If you eat 100 calories worth of vegetables and fruits, your body will have to work to process the fiber and all that. So it's going to end up burning some of the calories it gets from the food. And the same goes for protein and fat. But sugar and carbs, which is in the form of sugar, that's almost pure calories. It will just spike your insulin. So even the calories aren't the same, even though they're technically the same calories. So 100 grams of sugar is not the same as 100 grams of vegetables, which is not the same as 100 grams of, let's say, milk or meat. It's all different. So overall, I think there is some genetic component to obesity. It's quite possible. Yash Singh says, your thoughts on Kumari Kandam and old geographical map of India. Look, there's no evidence of Kumari Kandam anywhere. And I can show you that. Let's go back to the map. Here's the map on the screen. Let's put the satellite image on. Now we can see the satellite image. In the satellite image, you can see the bottom of the oceans as well. And you can almost see the tracks that the Indian subcontinent left behind when it moved away from Africa and made its way across the Indian Ocean and eventually slammed into the Eurasian continent. You can see the tracks left behind by the movement of the Indian subcontinent over the past 120 million years. So you can see what's at the bottom of the ocean. And please show me where is the lost continent. If there was a continent that went under the ocean, you would see some trace of it undeniably. It simply cannot hide. Where is this lost continent? There is no such thing. And therefore, I can tell you for sure that, in the past, some land may have been lost for sure under the ocean. You can see over here, there's a continental shelf. Yes, you can see the continental shelf. And when the world was much colder, then a lot more land would have been above the ocean. And as the ocean started rising, many cities would have been lost to the sea. We know multiple such cases. We know of Dwarka in western India. We know of the entire Gulf of Khambat archaeological complex, which is a whole network, a whole complex of underwater cities that are at least 10,000 years old. We have cities like Kaveri, Pumpattinam, etc. Of the southeastern coast of India. Sunken, submerged cities exist here as well. So we know that cities have disappeared under the ocean, but no such case of an entire continent disappearing under the ocean. That there is zero evidence of. So that is what I can tell you from the evidence that we have. If you have other evidence, please show me. I'll be willing to consider that objectively. Okay. Ptolemy says, if the elder son of a king inherits the kingdom, then what happened to the other sons? Well, it depends on the context. It depends on which culture, which civilization, which nation you're talking about. If you're talking about the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, do you know what happened when the Ottoman Empire had a transfer of power? Let's go to our dear friend Wikipedia. Yeah. One second. Let's go to Ottoman Empire. Let me put that on the screen. We'll do a Google search for Ottoman Empire. We're gonna trace some things back. Okay. Let's get into the Ottoman Empire. And who's there? One of the greatest kings. It's Selim, right? Not Selim. Selim was the son. We're gonna talk about Suleiman the Magnificent, obviously. Where is that? Okay, Suleiman the Magnificent. So this guy comes to power, and he has all these children, sons. So, see, Suleiman the First had at least 8 sons. Shahzade Mahmud, he dies on 29th October 1520. Shahzade Murad, 19th October 1520. Shahzade Mustafa, executed by the order of his father, 6th October 1553. 6th November, and so on. So there are different dates over here. But who was the Jahangir? Jahangir. Who was the guy who succeeded? Sultan Salim II, right? Salim the sot, Salim the drunkard. How many sons did he have? So this guy, his son was Murad, the eldest son, and all the other sons died on the 22nd of December 1574. 22nd December 1574. 22nd December 1574. 22nd December 1574. 22nd December 1574. All executed by Murad III, by the son who succeeded. So in the case of this guy, Murad III, when he became the king, he executed all of his siblings. I mean, male siblings. What about this guy's sons? I suspect that all of his sons would also have died in the year 1595. Okay, so that was the tradition in the Ottoman Empire. And it is something that somebody like Aurangzeb also kind of continued in India. He was also a Turk, wasn't he, Aurangzeb? So in the Turkic tradition, when the eldest son becomes the king or takes over the crown from the father, then the moment he takes the crown, he's gonna execute all of his blood, all of his male siblings, all of his brothers, and possibly even some cousins, to ensure that nobody else can claim the throne. That was the kind of extraordinary system they had, the Turks. So in the Turkic tradition, the eldest son of the king would immediately upon taking the crown execute all of his male siblings, all of his brothers. In India, in other countries, it was not quite the case. I mean, if in the UK you have William and whoever else, right? Who's the current king? It's Charles, right? Charles with the fingers. He has male siblings. He has brothers, wonderful brothers. So he didn't execute those upon becoming the king. So that's not the case over there. In the Christian tradition, it wasn't always the case that they would kill their male siblings. In India, not the case. We've had, I mean, in the Indian indigenous traditions, it was not the case. For example, we know of Lord Ram. He had how many brothers? Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughna. Did he do anything to them? No. Upon getting the crown, even when his kingdom was taken away from him, he voluntarily just went with it, right? So it depends on the cultural, civilizational context in which this transition happens. In the case of Chengiz Khan, he ensured that his third son becomes the next emperor, and his first and second son agreed to that. They had no choice, and so on. Okay, so it depends. Cute Animal says, can you say that democracy is perfect or the best? So is democracy the best system, the perfect system? No, I don't agree that it's the best. There is no perfect system. There is no best system. Look at Singapore, how it was completely transformed in a matter of 20 years by a dictator. You had a benevolent dictator, Lee Kuan Yew, who completely transformed Singapore. And that is a dictatorship. So you can have dictators who genuinely work for the people and for the nation, who spend their whole life working for the people in the nation. You can have dictators doing that. And in democracy, you can have quite the opposite in many cases. So there is no perfect system. There is no best system. What matters is the quality of the leadership in any system. Whichever system you have, as long as the leadership is great, you're going to be very well off. And no matter what system you're in, if the leadership is bad, well, then the gods save you. May the gods save you. Klaus Halstar QT says, will Pluto and Neptune collide one day? Not that I know of. No. Actually, it's an interesting question that you ask, because the orbit of Pluto kind of comes within the orbit of Neptune for a certain amount of its path. But as far as I know, there is no danger of the two objects colliding anytime in the foreseeable future. Not that I know of. But interesting question that you ask, and I get where you're coming from. The orbits kind of are weird. The orbit of Pluto comes inside the orbit of Neptune for a certain amount of its path. So that's interesting. Okay. Malik Sayed says, watching you since the Ukraine invasion, thoughts on the current situation there? Nothing much has changed over the past few months. There's something or the other going on. It's a very slow war, grinding out kind of situation right now. Various battles have been called meat grinders. That's how horrible it is. And the reason why the progress is so slow, kind of a stalemate thing, on a good day there is an advance of 2 or 3 kilometers here or there, that sort of thing. Why is it like that? It's because of the technological advancements that have been brought into play in this war. The battlefield environment is extremely lethal. Tanks have become extremely vulnerable today to various kinds of drones, loitering munitions, suicide drones. When it comes to individual soldiers, infantry, there are small drones that are designed to take out individual soldiers, and you see those horrible scenes on social media. Horrible, absolutely horrible. And that these drones don't kill the guy, immediately, but they ensure that he is out of action, and then it's not a good death. So the battlefield environment has become extremely lethal. There are mines everywhere, anti-tank mines, anti-personnel mines. So it's very difficult to advance right now. And also the fact is that Mr. Putin, as he seems to be willing to wait as long as necessary for the West to give up on Ukraine, because it's clear that the Russians are winning, no matter what you say. I Lots of people will be watching Indian news and foreign news, and all the Indian news channels are just puppets. They just parrot what the Western media is saying, because you don't have any Indian reporters on the ground on both sides. Initially, you had some news readers who had gone to Ukraine, and they were reporting about the war from the Ukrainian side. If you are a genuinely unbiased and balanced news channel, you would send two newsreaders to one side, two newsreaders to the other side, so that you can have reporting from both sides, so that you know what's really happening from both perspectives. But no, they will only send reporters and newsreaders to the Ukrainian side. That's the kind of media coverage we have in India. So the Indian media coverage is not going to give you the right information. It's going to give you skewed information. And when it comes to the Western media, whether it's the French media or the German media, the Ukrainian media, or the British media or the American media, obviously it's propaganda and narratives. They have been saying for the past three, I don't know what years, 2 years at least, that Putin is dying of something or the other. He had what? Some form of cancer. He has something else. He's been dying. He's on the verge of death. Well, he's still around. He's just fine. They have been saying that Russia has lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers. They're on the verge of running out of ammunition. Well, they've been saying that for the past 2.5 years. What happened? They were saying that Bakhmut was completely useless. I don't know why the Russians are fighting. Well, the Russians won. So the point is, what you are consuming from the news media, if it is the mainstream media, is mostly propaganda and agenda-driven narratives. You have to look at a 360-degree picture. Everybody's trying to spew propaganda. That's the thing. But the way I'm seeing it, Ukraine, the war, whenever it ends, will end on Russia's terms, not on NATO's terms. And it may last a long time. It could be a frozen conflict, a slow war scenario, or it could end in the next 2 weeks. Who knows? Who knows? Depending on a variety of factors. So yeah, that's what I think of what's going on there right now. Oh no, this is a very dangerous question. Swapnil says, was Sachin Tendulkar selfish? Sir, I am a very small person. I cannot speak about great people. I will very wisely not answer, not field such questions. I will just leave the ball alone. uh, Ubendran says, I wonder why most of the LGBTQ people in India are extremely Hindu phobic, extremely anti Hindu, anti Modi, pro Western ideologies, extremely pro Congress, pro Congress allies. Why so? Look, I don't know too many LGBTQ people. I know Abhijit Mitra, who has well said it himself that he's gay, and he's not Hindu phobic. He's not anti India and all that. So that's one example. Good, he's a great guy. I don't know any other LGBTQ people that I can think of uh, personally. I'm sure I may know people, but we don't know if they are that or not, right? It's entirely a private matter. I don't care about that, right? So I don't know, but there does seem to be some kind of such tendency of LGBTQ people who seem to be, some of them at least seem to be kind of Hindu phobic, which is strange because I think Hinduism though is the only religion that has never oppressed them or done anything that is anti-LGBTQ. I mean, in the UK, I keep seeing these news reports of people who are LGBTQ people who have same-sex marriages, and they have Hindu weddings because no other religion is willing to give them a religious wedding. So they have Hindu weddings. I recently saw some two ladies who got married in the UK in a Hindu ritual, Vedic ritual. So I think when it comes to all the religions in the world, it is the dharmic religions, and especially Hinduism, who are the most benign towards the LGBTQ people. There is absolutely nothing in the past 10,000 years of Indian history. Not a single instance will you find of any anti LGBTQ plus 2, 3, whatever, any such activity. Nothing whatsoever. And yet they are anti-India, anti-Hinduism, and all that. I don't get it. So clearly they are being brainwashed in some way. Those who have these tendencies for some reason, in some manner, I think they all go through the Indian education system, don't they? I think the education system is where all the rot, the root, the source of all the rot is there. That's what I can say. Okay. McLevin says, why is the tax so high in India? The taxpayers here don't get any benefits. It actually attracts more problems. I don't know why tax is so high in India. It's not as high as the US, for example. The US has ridiculous amounts of tax, 40 plus percent, I think. But yes, India also has a tremendous amount of tax. And you know what? Some people will say it's only 1.2% of Indians who pay income tax. So India actually has the lowest amount of tax paying in the world. That's the kind of thing many people will say. Less than 2% of Indians pay income tax. Do you know something? You buy a bottle of cola, you buy a pencil, you buy an eraser, you buy a textbook, a notebook, you buy a car, you buy groceries, you buy whatever, you're paying taxes on everything. You buy a bottle of aspirin, you buy a bottle of paracetamol, anything that you buy, any service, any good that you pay for, you're paying tax on that. Every single Indian is a taxpayer. You're already paying taxes. But those unfortunates who pay income tax will first get a salary, pay 20, 30, whatever percent of that. They will get some money, whatever is left, they have to pay more tax on that every time they purchase something. So they're being taxed multiple times. They're being taxed over and over again. It's a tremendous burden. Why not simplify the system? Tax everybody, sure, but tax only on what you buy. That's it. Why do you need income tax and this tax and that tax and whatnot? Keep the system simple. Everybody should contribute to the nation. Everybody should pay tax to the government so that the government can use that for nation building. I agree. No question about it. But don't make it an onerous burden on the people of India that half their time is spent, chasing tax returns and whatnot, tax filing and GST filing and blah blah blah. So much of energy is wasted in this when you can just have a simple system. So I agree. The tax regime needs to be greatly simplified. We don't have to follow the example of the West in everything. We don't have to blindly ape the West. Why don't we set an example for the rest of the world as to how a taxation system should be? Vishnugupta Chanakya said you should tax lightly, not too lightly, but not too heavily either. Maybe 20-25% maximum. And make it a single straightforward thing. So don't tax people on the income they are earning. Just tax people on whatever they're spending. Just one tax. So I think it can be simplified greatly. But I don't know why. Our bureaucrats love complexity and love making Indians run in circles and jump through hoops. Because that's the source of their power, right? But it's up to the leaders to change things. And the bureaucrats are supposed to just carry out the policies, right? So yeah, I wish some improvements are made. Uh, Cracker says, please make a video on Islam's golden age. Islam's golden age. Yeah, that I can think about that. That's an interesting period of history. It will obviously attract controversy because we know what was the source of the golden age of Islam. Okay, anyway, I'll consider this. Thank you. Shriram Santivel says, is an asteroid going to hit the Earth in the year 2038? I've heard of some news like that, that there's an asteroid that has a non-zero probability of its path intersecting with that of the Earth in the year 2038. Now, how close is going to be the approach, we don't know, but there seems to be a non-zero, non-trivial probability that the paths may intersect. So we still don't know for sure. It could happen. And there are multiple such asteroids which are called near Earth asteroids, whose orbits around the sun do intersect with the orbit of the Earth, but they're not always in the same place at the same time. But these are near Earth asteroids, and they have to be tracked very rigorously. And the problematic asteroids are not the ones that are known; it is the ones that we don't know about, because the solar system is enormous. It's all dark. Asteroids are tiny. Many asteroids are really dark, carboniferous asteroids and all that, dark like soot. It's very hard to discover them, and you never know. You know, one of those days they may discover an asteroid and call that asteroid Kali. I wish it never happens, but one of these days it will happen. Maybe while humans are alive, maybe way in the future, but it's going to happen eventually. Nishant says, did India ever have slave culture? Had an argument with my American friend. Of course, we had slavery in India. When the Turks ruled India, we had slavery. You know, you've heard of the Mamluk dynasty, the slave dynasty, Balban, Iltutmish, Razia, Sultana, etc. That was a short lived dynasty of Mamluks, slave soldiers, and they had slaves of their own. So, as long as India was ruled by the Turks, you had widespread slavery in India. They would take millions of Indians as slaves, men, women, children, for different purposes. I'm sure you can imagine what purposes these would be. So, you had slavery in India. Then, when you had the Europeans in India, they also kept slaves. For them, it is natural, it's part of their culture. I mean, think of Christopher Columbus. Reached uh, when he reached the Americas, he thought he had reached India. And when he saw those people, the natives who came to help him and greet him, the first thing he said was that, look at these fine people. They will make such great slaves. It's part of their culture. When it comes to Indian culture, slavery never existed. There was never ever any slavery in India under Indian kings or emperors. You had servants. The term dasa in Sanskrit means servant, not slave. Okay? But some historians will try to misconstrue that to mean slave. That's not the case. That's a lie. Dasa means servant. Right? So India never had slavery. I mean, what was that guy's name? Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador to India. He wrote, Indians don't have slaves. Indians don't. There is not a single slave in India. 7 classes or occupations in India and society, seven societal divisions, but no slavery. And lots of other people have spoken about this. There was no slavery in India ever. Okay, never under Indian kings or queens, but certainly for 1,000 years or so, roughly, under foreign occupiers of India. So, yep, that is the answer. But listen, don't. What's the point of arguing with people? No one. It's very rare to find people who will actually look at things objectively and actually change their mind, change their opinion based on information. Most people, they don't want to change their mind. So there's no point arguing with the people, you know. So I generally don't get into arguments unless, usually I don't. I try my best not to. Um, okay. Some other questions. Master Hitesh says, light cannot escape black holes. It means that the escape velocity for black holes would be more than the speed of light. Is it possible? Find displacement for velocity d in black hole will be 0. Okay, I'm not sure what the last part is, but okay. Um, Light cannot escape black holes. Does it mean that the escape velocity for a black hole exceeds the speed of light? Yes. Yes. Escape velocity is a very straightforward formula. Let me Google that. I will not derive it over here, but let me Google that. Escape velocity. Let us put that on the screen. We're gonna Google that. Escape velocity. Escape velocity. Celestial mechanics. So this is what it is in escape velocity. The escape velocity, the speed at a distance d from the center of a spherically symmetric primary body, such as a star or planet with mass m, is given by the formula VE is the square root of 2 mg by d, where g is the Newton's gravitational constant, m is the mass of the thing, and so on and so forth. So for a black hole, do they have it for a black hole? Let me try and search for that. Okay. So at the event horizon of any black hole, the escape velocity is equal to the speed of light. And if you go beyond the event horizon, the escape velocity exceeds the speed of light, which tells you that photons simply cannot escape from the black hole if they are closer to the black hole center than the event horizon, the radius of the event horizon. So yes, that's what it means. That's why light cannot escape black holes. But of course, you have quantum effects which cause the black holes to radiate. It's called Hawking radiation. That's a whole different phenomenon. Saurabh Bhadoria says, some leftists are spreading the propaganda that Brahmins destroyed Nalanda. What's your take? My take is that it is risible, it is asinine, it is laughable that Brahmins destroyed Nalanda. Brahmins were not warriors. Brahmins weren't these yoked, jacked people. They were scholars. Brahmins tried to continue the tradition of Nalanda. After the destruction of Nalanda by Bakhtiyar Khilji, I don't know who it was. I think it was a Tibetan monk who had come to India to investigate Nalanda. He found that it's in ruins, but there is one teacher, one Brahmin, who was still conducting classes. That Brahmin gentleman, his name was Rahul Shri Bhadra. He was in his 90s, and he was still trying to conduct classes for a handful of students in the ruins of Nalanda. The Brahmins were trying to preserve Nalanda. They tried to continue the tradition as long as possible. It was the Khilji, Bakhtiyar Khilji, who destroyed Nalanda, that Turkic barbarian. And you know what eventually happened to him, right? He met his end in Turkey, in Tibet. And would you like to know what happened to Bakhtiyar Khilji? He was skinned. His body was skinned. Let's try and see if we can find that. Let's Google that. Not now. So that guy, I believe his body was skinned and the skin was preserved in Tibet. Okay, not sure whether I can find that, because there is kind of an episode of history that's not very well known. But the crux of the matter is that it was not Brahmins who destroyed Nalanda. It was Bakhtiyar Khilji, the Turk, who destroyed Nalanda. And leftists or whoever it is will do their job. It's our job not to believe this nonsense, right? Okay. Luffy07 says, who has more right to claim Tibet, India or China, based on history? India has never administered or ruled Tibet. Indians have lived in Tibet. India has influenced Tibet deeply, tremendously. Tibetan culture is a local form of Indian culture, syncretized with the local ancient culture. So India has never ever ruled Tibet, never administered Tibet, never invaded or occupied Tibet. India has never done that. But India and Tibet had the best of relations. Essentially, we are the same culture. Ethnically, we are different peoples, But culturally, we understand completely. The Tibetan script is a descendant of the Brahmi script. It is, you could consider it to be a variant of the Devanagari. So similar to the Mongolian Swayambhu script. Google that. So that's the deal between India and Tibet. What about China? The Chinese have no claim on Tibet. They have never ruled Tibet. Their flimsy claim on Tibet is based on the claim that the Yuan dynasty once ruled Tibet. And according to the Chinese, the Yuan dynasty was a Chinese dynasty. It was not a Chinese dynasty. It was a conquest dynasty. And the conquest was done by the great Shri Chengish Khan. And the emperors of the Yuan dynasty were Mongols. They were not Chinese. And they did not invade, conquer, or occupy Tibet. Tibet was their protectorate. Tibet was the guru of the Yuan Empire. There was a guru-shishya relationship, master-student relationship. Tibet was the master. In what? In Buddhism. Okay, the Tibetans were the gurus of the Mongols. And they taught Buddhism to Mongolia. So Tibet was the intermediary that brought Indian culture into Mongolia, where it still exists. It's deeply ingrained. So the Chinese claim to Tibet is on entirely fictitious, made-up, flimsy grounds, but they occupy Tibet, and possession is 9/10 of the law, so to speak. So that is the case. That is the deal. That's the case. Nobody has a right to Tibet. Tibet should be entirely independent. That's my opinion. And when in the future Tibet will eventually be independent, I think India and Tibet will have an open border, the kind of relationship we have with Nepal right now. So yeah, that is how I see it. Okay. Rajat Hathwar says, will India have compulsory military service if World War III happens for age 18 to 30 or more than that? If World War III happens, I think there could be recruitment. There could be conscription. And in such a case, I think every able-bodied man should go and enlist in the armed forces. We do not ever want World War III to happen, of course, okay? But if there is an emergency like that, then yeah, I suppose there could be that sort of thing. And I don't think anybody would run from that. I mean, it's a privilege to have the opportunity to serve your nation and your people. So I think everybody would be happy to do that. So if there is World War III, which I hope never happens, then in that hypothetical situation, there could be possibly compulsory conscription. Good question. Siddharth Kumar says, what's the story behind the Mongol invasion at the Assassins Brotherhood in the 13th century? Okay, good question. Interesting question. The Hashishin. The Hashishin were they were the assassins, the legendary but very real assassins of history. They were called the Hashishin because their assassins, the trained assassins, would ingest opium, hashish, and go get high on that, and they would go and carry out their mission high on hashish. And the mission would be a suicide mission, always. Even if they succeeded in assassinating the target, they would get killed. And they would ensure that whether they're successful or whether they're not, they will not be caught alive. They would ensure that. So they were called Hashishin assassins. They were Shias, 12 Ismaili Shias, if I'm not mistaken. And they had this fortress called Alamut, which is in ruins today. And the reason it is in ruins, it was an inaccessible fortress. Let's Google that, shall we? Let us Google the fortress of Alamut. Oh, not this. Let us go to the Google. Yeah, Google. Alamut Fortress. Okay, castle. It's in Iran today. It's on top of this hill. It's almost impossible to reach there. Okay, and it was essentially an impregnable fortress, and it's in this region which is quite cold, where there you have a lot of snow for a significant part of the year, and so on. Maybe it looked something like this in the past. I mean, that's a historical depiction of some kind. And this fortress, even though it's almost inaccessible, it was taken by Chengiz Khan, and the grand old man of the mountain, the head of the order, was eliminated by Chinggis Khan and his armed forces. And why did the Mongols go after the assassins? Is the question. It's because apparently they made an attempt on the life of Chinggis Khan, so they had to be taken out. Okay, all right. Um, we're coming to the end of today's session. Um, Vladimir Chavda says, why did countries agree to use the US dollar as the world's reserve currency? Didn't they know that the US could print their money and raise their economy without causing inflation? Look, when the Roman Empire imposes a new rule on the world, what do? You're going to stand up to them? You won't. So in 1944, when the World War II was, well, the writing was on the wall, it would end sooner or later and the Allies would win, then it was clear that the US was the dominant force by the time. The US had this inexhaustible amount of resources from its entire continent sized land mass. It had the world's most powerful military at the time. It had already got this tremendous power projection ability. So it made sense for all the nations to quietly acquiesce to what the US said. The US had a lot of leverage, okay? And all the other nations were way too weak compared to the US. So these countries agreed to the US dollar. And at that time, the US dollar was pegged to the price of gold. So the US dollar was pegged to the gold standard, which meant that the US dollar, that paper, was a proxy for actual gold. You could, if you had a US dollar, you could go to the Americans, to their bank, and demand that quantity of gold, and they would have to honor that. That was the deal, and that went on until what, 1970 or something, the Nixon Kissinger era, and who uh, it was Nixon who ended that, who delinked the US dollar from the gold standard. And he turned the US dollar into a fiat currency. And that's where everything changes. And there's a website called WTF Happened in 1971. Check it out. It shows you through graphs everything that has gone wrong in the US started in 1971. Yeah, so that's the deal. So when the US dollar was agreed upon as the world's reserve currency, it was linked to the gold standard. It was linked to the price of gold. It was a genuine proxy for gold. And then the Americans went back on their word in 1970 or 71 or whenever, when Nixon decided to delink the US dollar from the price of gold. Okay. Mangekho Sherit says, do you think that marijuana should be legalized in India? What would be the outcome if it is legalized? I don't know. Look, I don't think it should be criminalized. It's just a herb. Obviously, it's a psychotropic herb. It has all these hallucinatory or whatever effects if you ingest that. I don't think most Indians have any interest in marijuana. It is something. It's kind of a sacred ritual, right? On Shivratri or whatever, once or twice a year, when people will ingest it ritualistically for religious purposes and get a little high or whatever. That's the deal. Apart from that, it just grows wild in various parts of India, especially in the hills and whatnot. How do you criminalize that? I think it's already kind of semi-legal, right? A small quantity of marijuana that's found on somebody, I don't think it's illegal. It's a criminal offense. It's only if someone's trying to transport certain large quantities of marijuana, I don't know what the limit is, then it's a criminal offense. So I don't think it's something that's in high demand. It's anyway readily available. I suppose you could grow it in your backyard if you wanted to. I don't think there's a high demand for this thing in India. I'm sure it has medicinal properties. The CBD oil or whatever seems to be good for certain conditions. Um, I've heard about that. So I think if it is fully legalized, I don't think there should be any big change in society. There's no huge demand that people will start shipping tons of marijuana somewhere or the other. There's no need for that, I suppose. So first of all, I don't think it is completely illegal. I think it's kind of semi-legal or something in India. And secondly, that I don't think there's a huge demand for it. I don't think most people even care about it. And whatever use it has a limited religious use, that once or twice a year on Shivratri, etc., people will do that. Yeah, so that's what I think. Okay, Rasika says Ashok killed all his siblings. Good point. So it's not always that you get this. I mean, that's a very good point you make. So it is said, according to the legend, that Ashok had 99 brothers and half brothers, and he had them all killed. Yeah, so Ashok was kind of an exception, as we know. He was called Chand Ashok. He was he was definitely one of our greatest emperors, okay? And he was great for the country as long as you were far away from him. If you were anywhere near him, you could be in big deep trouble. He was a dangerous guy, but he was a great emperor. And during his time, India prospered like anything. But he was a cruel guy, and he was perhaps kind of crazy. He had all those. He persecuted the Ajivikas, didn't he? And I don't know how many he had killed. He had this torture chamber called Ashoka's Narak or something, in which he had all his political opponents tortured to death and whatnot. He was a crazy kind of guy. So there are always exceptions. According to Indian culture, you don't do such things. You simply don't do that. But there are exceptions, right? Dhanananda was an exception. He was a bad emperor. So Chandragupta Maurya ended the Nanda Empire, right? Because they were corrupt and they were not liked by the people. Then you had, I can give you some more examples. Kansa Mama, the maternal uncle of Krishna, Shri Krishna. Kansa was a very evil king, despite being dharmic, supposedly. So there are always exceptions in every culture. But in the case of India, it is the exception, not the rule, that kings when they come to power, they'll kill their siblings. Okay? It is a rarity that such a thing will happen. Obviously, in any society, no matter how peaceful, a certain percentage of the population, no matter how small the percentage is, a certain percentage will have criminal tendencies. I think it's a psychological thing, not a cultural thing. So you can't say that because 0.1% of your population has criminal tendencies, it doesn't mean that your culture is a criminal culture, right? That's not the thing. But yes, you make a very good point. According to what we know, Ashoka did kill off all his siblings and half siblings. Very dangerous guy to be around. Okay, let's take a couple of more questions. Oh, we have already crossed 2 hours. Wow, didn't realize. Okay, let's take this one. Arush says, why did the US bomb Laos, even though Laos was not directly participating in the Vietnam War? Is a good question. Let us go to Google Maps, in case some of us may not know where Laos is. So we know where India is. We go eastwards. We see Myanmar, then we see Thailand, and east of Thailand, Suvarnabhumi, we have Laos, this longish nation which is west of Vietnam. That's Laos. And the US, so when the Vietnam War happened, the US did these tremendously heavy and horrific bombing runs over Laos. They bombed Laos into oblivion, despite Laos not being involved in the Vietnam War at all. Why did the Americans do that? Because what if some Vietnamese enemies of the US were hiding in Laos? Let's destroy Laos as well. As simple as that. They are ruthless. There's no human rights. There's no democracy. When it comes to the Americans fighting their wars, they'll flatten everything. The American style of war fighting is essentially the same as the old Roman style. You create a wilderness and you call it peace. You flatten entire nations and then say that we have brought human rights and peace and democracy. Because see, there's no one there now. It's all peaceful. That's what the US does. They exfoliated Laos and Vietnam by using this horrific carcinogen called Agent Orange. They would spray that from their aircraft in over forests, so it would over time defoliate all the trees, all the leaves would fall off, but that chemical would seep into the soil and into the food chain. It caused horrific birth defects, which still persist in Vietnam and Laos. Cancers, birth defects, malformed children, all that sort of thing, which goes on for generations. So it's kind of what they did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that sort of thing, but maybe even worse. And there are still millions of unexploded bombs all over the place, Vietnam and Laos. And Laos was in no way involved in this. But just in case some Viet Cong were hiding in Laos, let's destroy Laos as well. That's what they did. So there you have it. All right. So many more questions. Dr. Jaishankar says, if our politicians keep playing caste politics, will Hindus ever be able to unite? Will Indians ever be able to unite? If never, then what's the most practical way to eradicate this system? It's very simple how to eradicate this so-called caste thing. Remove all references to caste from your birth certificate, from your school certificates, from your education certificates, from your government certificates. Remove caste from there. It becomes irrelevant overnight. Your birth certificate has caste on it. Your school certificates and educational certificates, etc., have caste. Your government certificates and whatever not, everything is caste. The government is perpetuating this weird, artificial, unnecessary system. Remove all references to caste from everywhere, from all the official documents. That's it. End of story. And then end all the reservations and give reservations based on financial status only. You should give reservations to those who are financially backward for a generation or two maximum. That's it. Until they can come back to the, where they should be. That's it. That's how we eradicate the system practically. Muhammad Ismail says, can you shed some light on Mansa Musa's trip to Mecca and how he devalued the value of gold in Egypt? So Mali, let's go to Mali. So we will go to Africa now. And in Western Africa, in the Sahel region, there is this nation called Mali. And there used to be a kingdom of Mali here a few centuries ago, much larger than the present day nation of Mali. And Mali is rich in gold. It has tremendous gold reserves. And Mansa Musa was this king who was reputedly the richest person of all time. So his net worth in today's US dollar amounts would have been about 400 or so trillion dollars. That's how rich he was. That's how much gold he had. I forget which century he lived in, but you can Google it. And then obviously he was a Muslim, so he decided that he would go to Mecca on a pilgrimage. And as you can see, if you want to go to Mecca, to the Arabian Peninsula, then from Mali you have to go eastwards. You have to cross Egypt and go into Arabia. So Egypt obviously was a major economy at the time, reasonably prosperous nation, and I'm sure there was a lot to buy over there. So Mansa Musa, I think, he went on a shopping spree or something and spent a lot of gold in Egypt. And he flooded Egypt with so much gold that it actually devalued the value of gold in the country. So that's the long and the short of it. He had that much gold. And when you make so much of that available, its value goes down. So that's why the value of gold temporarily plummeted in Egypt. That's the deal with Mansa Musa. Aditya Kumar Shaw says, was bodybuilding popular in ancient India? Like we have Samudragupta's muscular depiction in coins of Gupta period. We don't know. We have kind of lost the information about the practices of those days. We know we had martial arts. various kinds of martial arts in India. Uh, what's his name? Bodhidharma, the monk who went to China, he took the knowledge of India's martial arts and transferred it to China, didn't he? So there was that. We had martial arts in India, and possibly bodybuilding may also have been popular. I mean, who doesn't like aesthetic physics and all that? And we know the Gupta coins, right? Samudra Gupta, etc. The coins. Let me try and Google it quickly. Some Samudra Gupta coin. So yeah, you have these golden coins with extremely powerful physical depictions. What's this? Kanda Gupta? Was it Kumar Gupta? 1 second. Let's try Kumar Gupta. Yeah, you can see these martial poses, bodybuilder kind of body, extremely fit bodies and all that. See here, a heroic pose. Look at the bulging muscles. So yeah, it may have been there. I mean, the practice of bodybuilding may have existed. So we see this indirect evidence over here on these coins. You can see the bulging muscles and the aesthetic physique. Good to see. So it looks like bodybuilding may have been popular in ancient India. All right, we have gone way past 2 hours 11 minutes, so I'm gonna end this session over here. Thank you so much to everybody who has participated. Apologies to those of you whose questions I could not take. I know there are so many more questions, but I'm gonna have to end it over here. We're gonna have a live stream again tomorrow. Tomorrow's live stream is about science, astrophysics, all that, and then we will have live stream number 200 on Friday. So hopefully I will see you in these live streams coming up. Until then, take care, and as always, keep raising your standards. See you soon. Bye.